November 14, 2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group is conducting exercises off the coast of Southern California. For the last 2 weeks, the guided missile cruiser USS Princeton has been detecting unidentified aircraft in the airspace around the strike group. These aircraft have been performing feats no human aircraft could possibly match, such as appearing at 80,000 feet, then dashing to just 20,000 feet in seconds, then hovering in place. Today, 2 of those objects is back. Commander David Fravor and his wingmen are immediately waved off their exercise flight aboard their F-18s and redirected to intercept the unidentified object. As he approaches the location of the object, he spots a massive disturbance beneath the waves, and what he thinks may be an object roughly the size of a 747 cruising just under the surface of the ocean. Even more peculiar, a small white oval object is floating directly above the underwater object. Fravor immediately begins a slow descent to get a better look at the white tic-tac-shaped object and is astonished when the object mirrors his descent but in reverse. Clearly it's under intelligent control, whatever it is. Suddenly, the object speeds away from the American jets. A second wave of F-18s are vectored in on the object's new position, and Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood managed to record the object on his fighter's infrared camera. The object is never identified. All the way across the U.S. on the East Coast, fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group encountered their own aerial anomalies. Once more, while flying training exercises, the F-18s detect anomalous radar contacts, objects moving in ways that no known human craft is able to. Flying in for a closer look, they managed to capture 2 objects on their infrared cameras. These encounters would only be the beginning of a tidal wave of UFO reports by military personnel, and one American senator felt that he needed to address the UFO question once and for all. Starting in 2007, if you saw something strange in your neighborhood and it definitely didn't look good, you wouldn't call the Ghostbusters. You'd call the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, started by Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. The program was written into a spending bill and authorized for a budget of $22 million. Its job? To find out why so many American aviators were reporting strange things flying in the skies alongside them. The program was never classified, but rather unreported to the American taxpayer. That meant that while not specifically hidden from view, so to speak, the AATIP and its findings simply weren't reported on. The desire for semi-secrecy was critical to the program's investigations into unidentified aerial phenomenon, as very often AATIP's investigations would require diving deep into the capabilities and possible limitations of America's most advanced fighter aircraft sensor and imaging systems. For 5 years, until its funding was canceled by the Pentagon, AATIP investigated reports of strange phenomena by both military and civilian personnel. The focus of the program wasn't so much to look for little green men from Mars, looking to eat our brains though. It was to identify possible phenomena which could be placing American pilots at risk. However, as the investigation ramped up, the reports of strangeness on a global scale began to pour in. By program's end, an as-yet unclassified report nicknamed the 10-month report included detailed investigations into hundreds of UAP sightings and encounters by pilots all over the world. What AATIP personnel quickly discovered was that unexplained aerial phenomenon was hardly limited to the U.S., and the more they looked, the more reports of encounters with inexplicable phenomenon in the skies they found. According to a former contractor of Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, itself contacted to assist AATIP in its efforts, this 10-month report was merely a drop in the bucket of investigative materials generated by AATIP personnel. However, it turns out that AATIP wasn't just interested in discovering if highly advanced alien craft were zipping along in our skies. They may have been interested in reproducing their effects for ourselves. In one of the more controversial discoveries of the AATIP program, since its public disclosure, AATIP was found to not just be investigating aerial phenomena, but actively awarding research grants to individuals working on the very cutting edge of human research. These grants led to 38 published studies, all of them dealing with extremely experimental physics. Some of these studies included warp drive, dark energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions, traversable wormholes, stargates, and negative energy, and detection and high-resolution tracking of vehicles at hypersonic velocities. The range of studies funded, at least in part by AATIP, indicated a keen interest in extremely theoretical physics, potentially in an effort to either replicate or at least explain the capabilities of the phenomenon investigated by the group. Other studies, such as invisibility cloaking, had very obvious benefits for the military that didn't necessarily have anything to do with aliens. Even the study on detecting and tracking hypersonic vehicles in high resolution is of obvious benefit to a US military which right now is threatened by a glowing arsenal of hypersonic Russian and Chinese weapons. Before you shake your head at the government waste of taxpayer money on crackpot science, however, You should be aware that all of the funds handed out by AATIP were awarded to legitimate scientists, not YouTube conspiracy theorists who tried to convince you the government doesn't want you to know you can build a perpetual motion machine in your garage. Spoiler alert, you can't. Every single technology proposed by AATIP's studies is theoretically believed to be possible and not immediately impossible by the laws of physics as we understand them. They are simply centuries, if not more, ahead of our time. Maybe aliens have already mastered them, and AATIP's funded studies were an attempt to explain how they work. That would certainly be the opinion of AATIP's former director Luis Elizondo. A former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent, Elizondo got his start by conducting counterintelligence operations in South Korea and then the American Southwest. After a few years, Elizondo was recruited into the Special Activities Program within the Department of the Army. And for those of you who don't remember your history, this would be the same program that fought back against a communist takeover of the world by toppling democracies all over the Middle East and South America. After the special event happened right after September 10, 2001, which we're not even allowed to mention by name or YouTube hits us with a ban hammer, Elizondo brought his counterintelligence and counterespionage expertise to U.S. forces in the Middle East. Then Elizondo earned himself a promotion as the Overseas Investigations Desk Officer in Washington, D.C., where he helped manage investigations into foreign intelligence agents and terrorists worldwide. Then in 2008, Elizondo turned his expertise to the alien question, as he joined the AATIP program and a few years later became its director. It was Elizondo who, years after the program's end, leaked to the public the now infamous FLIR, Go Fast, and Gimbal videos, depicting the U.S. Navy's F-18s encountering unexplained phenomenon over the Pacific Ocean. To the surprise of most people, the U.S. Navy itself was quick to verify that the videos were in fact real, with Susan Goff, a spokeswoman for the Pentagon, stating that the videos are part of a larger issue of an increased number of training range incursions by unidentified aerial phenomenon in recent years. However, the Pentagon has repeatedly stated that the objects are exactly that, unknown in nature. Much of AATIP's findings remain either unpublicized or classified, with Elizondo himself having leaked the 3 F-18 videos out of frustration with the lack of transparency by the government on the UAP issue. While officially AATIP was shut down in 2012, it's now known that a second, also unacknowledged program took over exactly where AATIP took off. This new program, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, is believed to have been running since 2012, though there's no verifiable information on budget or current status. The only information we have is an official acknowledgement that on August 4, 2020, Deputy Secretary of Defense David L. Norquist approved the establishment of the UAPTF, the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, designated under the Department of the Navy. Elizondo and others, however, claim that the UAPTF program has been secretly running for years, and the public disclosure of its creation was simply meant to address rumors of its existence. Today, we still know very little about what AATIP discovered in its 5 years of operation, as most of its findings remain classified to this day. What is known is that several classified briefings took place by AATIP members to the U.S. Congress. These briefings also included interviews with U.S. Navy pilots who encountered UAPs, as well as Navy leadership. According to Popular Mechanics, Senate Intelligence Committee Brigadier General Richard Stapp, Director of the Department of Defense Special Access Program Central Office, testified that the UAP phenomenon being encountered by American forces was not, in fact, secret U.S. technology. This has alarmed many senior military leadership and Congress members who are fearful of unseen advances by the Russian or Chinese military. While it might be tempting to run straight to the alien conclusion concerning unidentified aerial phenomenon, for many in the defense community, AATIP's real value was investigating potential sightings or interactions with secret Chinese or Russian tech. It's known, after all, that while the United States was focused on the war on terror, it was greatly eclipsed by both China and Russia in development of hypersonic missile technology. Many military personnel believe that UAPs being encountered by military pilots around the world may be nothing more than advanced drones or similar technology, and are fearful that they're now being employed by our potential adversaries. As far as what the Pentagon actually knows about UFOs, the world may get a chance to find out, thanks to a June 25, 2021 briefing requested by Congress from the Pentagon. The subject of the briefing is specifically on the UAP phenomenon, and Congress has stipulated that as much of it must be made unclassified as possible so that the American public can also share in the search for answers. However, some elements of the briefing are guaranteed to remain classified simply because the search for answers on UFOs over American airspace will necessarily reveal information about America's most cutting-edge sensor systems. Now, go watch why Pentagon is releasing UFO info in 6 months, or click this other video instead.